And if you would like to be able to have a link for that, please let us know, and we'd be happy to send that to you. I want to thank Christina Forbes. Christina is our presenter tonight. She normally is your host for this monthly caregiver series, but we've turned the tables on her tonight and asked her to be in the spotlight even more by being our speaker with this valuable information. So thank you for joining us tonight, Christina, as our presenter.
Thank you. Very happy to be here, everybody.
Christina is the program director at Daybreak Adult Day Services here in Frederick. It is a medical daycare program that serves senior citizens with medical and/or cognitive impairments. She's been the director there for 10 years and was the center's social worker for 4 years prior to that. Christina has a master's degree in social work from Boston University and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Brandeis University. She was a nursing home social worker earlier in her career and then enjoyed 12 years as a stay-at-home mom before re-entering the workforce 14 years ago. Christina, I'm sure many of you know her already, is very passionate about working with seniors and has very special interests in dementia and caregiving. She enjoys being part of the network of elder services providers here in Frederick County and always is striving to educate and connect seniors and their caregivers to resources and information to provide assistance to them and their family members as they age. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you, Rayanne.
We will let you take over the screen and start your presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. As Rayanne said, I'm often usually the host, but really excited to be your speaker tonight. So give me a second to pull my screen up and we'll get started. Whoops. All right, well, we're talking about the holidays, right? The most wonderful time of the year. I know for caregivers, that isn't always the case, right? It sounds great when Andy Williams sings it, but the reality is that this can be a really difficult season for a lot of different reasons. Let's talk about that recipe. What makes this time of year difficult? So first of all, you've got your normal caregiver responsibilities. I know I'm preaching to the choir. You know how busy you are, right? You're taking on the physical tasks of caring. The time, the supervision, you may not even be able to leave your house because of the person that you take care of. You're doing the laundry, the cooking, the endless doctor's appointments. Perhaps you're still working and trying to manage a normal life in that way as well. Maybe you are taking on the chores that your loved one used to do. Maybe they took care of the money and the finances, and now you've got to do that too on top of everything else. Or perhaps you never did the cooking or the cleaning, but now you've added that onto all the other things you do. So again, preaching to the choir, you know, being a caregiver is not easy. It's hard and it's stressful in normal times. Now we've got holidays. And even if you're not a caregiver, you know that holiday season is a stressful time, right? It starts earlier and earlier every year. The Hallmark Channel's been showing Christmas movies since October. The malls and the stores have been selling Christmas items since Halloween. There's just a constant barrage of pressures to perform or do things or be a certain way at this season, and all of that, right? Those two things added together now, a lot of stress. But that's not all we've got going on, right? We're definitely not taking care of ourselves the way that we should be. This season, we're eating lots of things we don't normally eat, lots of sugar. We are not getting enough sleep, whether it's because we're up at night worrying about what's happening to us, or we're just staying out late or doing things that we don't usually do. Our routines have changed, right? All of these obligations, people dropping in perhaps, or things to do, places to go. Our normal routine has changed. And you know, for your loved one, changes in routine can be hard. For you, changes in routine can be hard. And there just tend to be a lot more of those changes at this particular time of year. We also can't forget the season, the change, the time change. It is getting darker so much earlier. None of us are getting enough sunlight. Your loved one might be sundowning. If they have dementia, my God, that's starting even earlier than it did before. People are wanting to go to bed at 5 or 6 o'clock because it looks dark outside and that's their cue to go to bed. So all of that stuff at this time of year makes things a little bit more difficult. You've got a lot of unrealistic expectations that are weighing on you, right? The Hallmark effect, the Hollywood effect, the things that you want to do a certain way, the traditions, just there's a lot of expectations to do things at a certain level at this time of year, and that weighs on you. I think it's really important to acknowledge the grief factor. The holidays tend to bubble up grief. You might be grieving a person who's passed away, and this time of year makes that just a little bit more raw. Or maybe your loved one is still living with you, but you're grieving the person that they once were. They're not the same. They might not be the partner that they were when you married them. And that's very sad. And holiday time just tends to make that more acute. I think it's also reasonable to acknowledge the fact that you're grieving for yourself as well. This might not be the way you thought this phase of your life was going to go. This isn't how you thought your retirement years would look, or your middle-age years, or your younger years. If you're a younger person with children, you probably didn't expect that you'd be taking care of a parent at the same time. So you're grieving a lifestyle that's changed, a way of life that has changed for you. And that's all very real. And that plays into this holiday stress recipe. We've got family. You've all got family. And although they can be challenging at all times of the year, it seems that holiday time seems to bring out sometimes the best, but often not the best in people. And so that you're seeing more family, you're hearing from more families got input, that can really add to the holiday stressors. And then, of course, this year we have COVID. There's no question. I don't think I'm speaking just for myself when I say that, when everything got discombobulated last year because of COVID, we thought surely next Christmas we'll be able to do A, B, and C. And wow, that sure isn't the case, right? COVID is still very much here and getting worse. And that absolutely is adding a whole nother level of stress to this already very stressful time. So what do we do? How do we get through this season that now lasts a whole lot longer with your sanity still intact and hopefully some merry still there, right? We want you to be happy at the end of all of this. This might be how you're feeling, right? Bah humbug. We're done with the holiday. Let's just get to January. But hopefully I can give you some things to think about, some things you might be able to control and change that hopefully help you get through this season a little bit easier. So first and foremost, I think it's really important to reframe your expectations and do that earlier. I'm almost sorry that we didn't do this webinar in November so that you could have thought about some of this before the big holiday occasions. But this is really important information, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving, or a birthday celebration, or an anniversary, or a family reunion. Any of those big events tend to have a lot of the same stressors. They might last for a shorter period of time, but they're still really real. And I think reframing your expectations early is an important way to get through it. This will not be the best Christmas ever. It won't. It absolutely can't be. For all of those reasons that we just talked about, this will not be the best Christmas ever. And if you have your Hallmark ideal that it's going to be, you're absolutely setting yourself up for failure. It doesn't need to be the way that it was. It won't be the way that it was. And that's hard. That's sad. But if you can wrap your head around that early before you start with your expectations and your plans, you might be making the season a little bit more manageable, which is going to help keep your stress level low. Really important, I think the reasonable goal is to make it the best Christmas, the best holiday, the best celebration it can be now. Under these circumstances, the best it can be this year, okay? all of the circumstances, your loved one's circumstances, the COVID circumstances. Just strive for it to be the best it can be. COVID, horrible, right? There's really not a lot of good we can say about it, but I would like to suggest that there might be a silver lining or two to COVID. It's kind of an out for you, and it's something that you could use to your advantage. People are not likely to second guess you if you say, I don't think it's safe to take mom to the big Christmas Eve church celebration or the big family party at Mary's house because of the COVID risk. Her risk is very real, right? She's in a dangerous category. Her outcome could be bad. So people might accept that as a reason not to do something more than they would your other reasons, which are many, but others might not understand them. So COVID might be something that you could use to your advantage this year. Listen, take whatever positive you can get out of it, take it. Really, really, really important that you plan ahead. You've got to think through every adventure, every visit, every outing. You've got to put some thought into planning ahead. And I realize that's one more thing that you don't have time for, but I'm telling you that time spent doing the planning ahead is going to save you a lot of time and stress at the other end. I was in downtown Frederick last weekend. It was a gorgeous Saturday. Downtown Frederick was absolutely packed. And my husband and I were in Shabro, which is on East Street. If you haven't been there before or haven't been in a while, very narrow sidewalks. The street is right there. There's no parking. There's no bike lane. The traffic is literally running right along the sidewalk. The sidewalks are brick, so they're uneven and bumpy. And again, lots of people moving. And here we are behind a older woman with a rollator trying to navigate the street with a younger woman who I assume might have been a daughter. And I couldn't help but think, oh my gosh, who thought this was going to be a good idea? Clearly, they didn't plan ahead. Neither one of them looked particularly happy. So I don't suppose they were having a great time, but that probably wasn't the best adventure. You've got to think about what your loved one's physical limitations are. Where are you going to park? Are they going to be able to get in? Are you going to be able to navigate the sidewalks or the pathways? Are there going to be lots of other people there? Are you going to have to travel a great distance to get to your destination? Are you going to wipe them out from the parking lot to wherever you're going before you even get there? You got to think about the physical limitations. Are they going to be able to get up the steps? Are they going to be able to get into Aunt Sally's house? Is the bathroom going to be accessible? You've got to take some time while it's quiet before you get there to think those things through. What's going to overwhelm them or overstimulate them? And this, gosh, there's so much going on. There's lights, there's decorations, there's lots of people, lots of things to overwhelm. My social worker here at Daybreak recently shared an excellent article with our families and myself, written by a gentleman, Rick Phelps, who at the time of the writing had early stage dementia. Early enough that he could articulate and put his feelings about the holidays on paper. And keep that in mind, because at that early stage, he's saying in this brief article that it overwhelms him. The Christmas tree and the lights in his home confuses him sometimes. The children and the wrapping paper and the dog, all of that commotion can be really overwhelming for him. Lots of people, forgetting names, being asked how you're doing, all of that, very overwhelming for him. Now, he goes on in the article to say that not every person experiences that. And he's intact enough to know that he can withdraw himself. He doesn't want his family to change their traditions, and he removes himself when he needs to. But again, remember, he is early enough in the disease process that he could articulate all of that. Think about your loved one who perhaps is well beyond the phase of articulating something of that magnitude. How are they reacting to all of that stuff? So the things that we think are joyful at this holiday season might be really too much for them. And how are they going to react in that particular situation? And what's going to be the consequence Is it going to take them days to recover, right? Are you going to have to deal with that recovery for days after? Think about their medicines. What's the schedule? What are the side effects? If your loved one has Parkinson's disease, you know you've got that sweet spot when the medicine is working at its finest. Make that the time that you're interacting with other people. Don't wait until it's almost time for the next dose when they're starting to come down off of the positive effects of the medication. Does the drugs make them sleepy? Maybe that's not the time to go on an outing. Or maybe use that to your advantage. Maybe that is the time to have someone come over to visit so that your loved one is napping and you can enjoy some time with family. So there's no good or bad. It's just going to work. What's going to work best for you? And how do you manipulate the schedule to work best for you? Really important to remember the medications if you're going out. Make sure you're taking the dose so they're not missing it. Make sure you've got those PRN or as needed medications. You don't want to be out somewhere and someone be in pain and you forgot their pain medication at home or the anxiety medication, right? You want to make sure you have that stuff with you along with your go bag, right? The change of clothes, the extra snacks, the quiet, maybe the earphones if they use that, something, whatever they use to soothe themselves, right? You want to make sure you have all of that. And you want to make sure that you're honoring their rest schedule. Staying out late at night may not be worth it. When we used to have a neighbor who had little twins, and we would have parties on our patio all of the time. And no matter what was happening, the height of the party, Kathy would scoop up those boys and leave at 7 or 8 o'clock. And we would all joke with her, come on, everybody's out, just stay. And but she knew that if she did that, she would pay the consequences long after the party. It wasn't worth it for the moment of fun. The negative consequence of those two overtired twins were not worth it for her. And so think about your loved one in that regard. What are you setting them up for? What are you setting yourself up for? We talked about their special needs, but equally, or even maybe more importantly, what are your special needs? What are your physical limitations? What's going to be hard for you to navigate? Are you going to be able to get the wheelchair in and out of the car and down the ramp and wherever it needs to go? Are you physically going to be able to help this person up the flight of stairs to get into the church? Is there going to be somebody there you can count on to help you? Think about it. Again, think about it while it's quiet so that you can have a plan. What's going to overwhelm or overstimulate you? That's just as important as your loved one. There's a lot going on and you are torn in many different directions. So think about that. What's your medication schedule? What are your side effects? Make sure you've got your extra medications in case you need them. And when do you need to rest? I know that's hard, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's really important that when you can honor your schedule. If you take a medication at noon that makes you drowsy, don't let family come visit at 1. Have them come at 10 instead, or later in the evening. Be mindful of your schedules and try to take advantage of what will work best. Family. I got to take a drink before we get to that one. So we've all got family, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. We've all got them. As Rayanne said, I've worked at Daybreak for 14 years. And in those years, I have worked with hundreds of families. And I've heard it. I always say, I think I've heard it all, but there's always something else coming that wows me. I'll tell you that what I have learned, that the perfect family where everybody is sharing responsibilities equally, everybody's supporting one another, that is rare. I'm not even sure it really exists, but that is not normal. So your family with some kind of dysfunction, that's normal. So the grass is definitely not greener on the other side. Everybody all together on the same page. Great goal, but not typical and maybe not even doable. So here are some of the family members. I bet some of these will resonate with you, right? The out-of-towner who has all of the answers. The sister from California who flies in for a weekend every 6 months and doesn't know what you're talking about. Mom seems fine. Or who calls on the phone and talks to mom for 10 minutes and just does not understand what you are talking about. The naysayer, the person who poo-poos every idea that you have, who just negative Nancy about every solution that you propose. The do-gooder, the one who's got lots of ideas, but never helps to execute any of them. The armchair quarterback, who's got plenty to say about everything, right? Sitting in the chair, not doing a darn thing, but plenty to say about how you're doing it. You've got the left out spouse. This is really important to recognize. If you have brought a loved one into your home, that can really be stressful. A triad, that 3-person arrangement, whether you're teenage girls who are best friends or 3 adults living in a house, there's bound to be conflict, right? 3 people all together doesn't always work well. So somebody's going to be left out. And you are probably the one in the middle being stretched from both ways, trying to please everyone and give everyone the time and attention that they need, only yourself to be ripped apart. So that's a lot of pressure for you. And then the neglected kids. This is really significant. I talked before about it not being the best Christmas ever. But if you're sandwiched in that generation and you've got little kids and you're taking care of a parent, you want it to be the best. You want it to be their best Christmas ever. And it's really hard to reconcile how you broker that, right? Between giving your kids everything that you think they should have at this holiday season with what you are actually physically capable of doing. So how do we manage the family? How do we deal with all of these people? So the most important thing I can tell you is you don't have any control over those people. The only person you can control, the only thing you can control is your reaction to these people. The only person you can change is you. And I know that sounds trite, but it is true. I would like to further suggest at this particular time of the year that you absolutely give up any notion that you have of trying to change these people or control these people, right? Even if you don't buy into what I'm saying about this, you put this aside for holiday season. Like, don't even put this on your to-do list. You're not going to convince your brother that he needs to be more helpful and take your mom every other weekend. Like, just take it off your plate, because it's not going to happen, and it's going to be more stress and negative energy that's going to wind you up this holiday season. So put it in a box, put it on a shelf. You can revisit it after the holidays, but right now it's just too much. You don't need that kind of negativity and that energy bogging you down. Again, if you can wrap your head around the fact that the only person you can change is you, the only thing you can control is your own reaction to these people, that'll take you a little bit further to managing it well. I'd like to share a poem that I look to regularly. Friends of Bill know that it's commonly used for folks in AA, but I really believe this is a brilliant piece of wisdom for a caregiver. So God, or whatever higher power you believe in, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and importantly, the wisdom to know the difference. So, if that speaks to you in this moment, write this down, copy it, take a picture of it, put it anywhere that you can, that will help you take a moment of pause, take a deep breath, let it out, and just be able to move on. That in this moment, I cannot change it. I know that, I've got the wisdom to know that, and I'm moving on, right? I'm putting that aside for right now, and I'm moving on. So I think this is a brilliant piece of advice. So we've got this crazy family. We've got all of this stress. Again, how do we navigate this? We're planning ahead. This one is really difficult for caregivers, both asking for help, and maybe even more difficult is accepting help, right? This is not easy. Most caregivers that I work with have trouble with this. So you need to get comfortable with asking for help, and don't go knocking your head against a wall. If your brother hasn't helped yet, well, don't go ask him now, because you know what the reaction is going to be. You know what the response is going to be. You're not doing yourself any favors. But if there are people, and I know there are people in your lives who have repeatedly offered to help with something, now's the time to ask if they can help. And then accept help. When those people offer, accept it. But there's some caveats to that. You need to be specific about what you need. Most people, unless they have been a caregiver, absolutely have no idea what your world is like. They have no idea what you live with every day. And therefore, they have no idea what you really need. So you need to be specific and ask for what you need. Could you go to the grocery store for me? I have only one pot of laundry detergent yet, and I know I'm going to have a lot of laundry to do tomorrow. Simple, specific, doable. And as the person who's offered help, I don't really know what to do for you. I'm your friend and I want to help you, but wow, if you give me something tangible like that, I got it. I'm on my way, right? So people, many people, most people will respond very positively to you being specific, because frankly, they don't really know what you need. They don't know what to do for you, but they genuinely want to help. Don't set people up for failure. If your neighbor has offered to come sit with your mom so that you can go out, and you are now, after hearing me, saying, I'm going to say yes to that. Well, don't have them come over at 6 o'clock at night when your mom is off the charts with sundowning. They're never going to come back, right? So know the person that you are working with on this help thing, and have them come do something that you think is going to be successful. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more work on you to think that through, but the outcome, the consequence is they just might want to do it again, right? So maybe that person can come sit with your mom when she's sleeping, or can come and sit with your mom during lunchtime so they have something to do or to talk about, right? So be wise. Don't send your elderly neighbor with a 50-item grocery list if you know she has trouble doing her own grocery shopping, but she could add the laundry detergent when she goes to get her stuff, right? So think about your audience and create a situation that they can be successful at, because that's going to want to make them do it again. Really important to recognize that people are not going to do things like you do, and that is okay. Now, I've heard someone shared a story about a sister-in-law, and all she does is put my mother in front of the television. And yes, on a day-to-day basis, having your mom watching TV 10 hours a day is not good for your mom, right? You exercise her, you make her get up and move, you make sure she goes to the bathroom. That's good caregiving. But you know what? For one Saturday in December, is it going to hurt anything if your mom watches TV for 6 hours? Probably not, right? So think about that. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it's not going to be like you. They won't do it like you. They can't do it like you. They don't know what you know, but is what they do going to be enough, right? Would 6 hours out of the house for you be worthwhile, right? If mom just watched movies all day, yeah, it probably would be. So get yourself comfortable with that it's not going to be like you did. You know what? Your brother might not get mom to change her clothes. And if you come home and she's still wearing the same clothes she had yesterday, is that really a big deal for this once? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Don't say to your brother, oh, you couldn't get her to change? Say, thank you. I really appreciated the time out of the house, right? Be gracious. It doesn't need to be perfect. Don't be a martyr. People can't read your mind. And mom, I'm sorry, I'm going to use you as an example. My brother is a great guy. My brother is a good person. He's an upstanding member of his community. He's a police officer. But my brother wouldn't know someone needed help unless they called 911 to get it, right? That's just not in his wheelhouse. He is not intuitive. He is not thoughtful. It just would never... He just doesn't think of things. When my dad was living and he had to go to dialysis 3 times a week, And you can't miss rain, sleet, snow. It doesn't matter. You have to go. My brother would never think to come and shovel the sidewalk. And my mom would dream and hope that my brother would come and shovel the sidewalk, because that's what a good son should do. And my mom would ruminate about my brother not coming to shovel, because he should know and he should do that. And the next morning when snow was on the ground, my mother would risk life and limb to get outside and shovel, and surely curse my brother with every shovelful. When in reality, had she asked, there's a pretty good chance, I won't say 100% chance, but there's a pretty good chance that my brother would have come and shoveled. He just intuitively would have never thought of it. So don't be a martyr. Don't ruminate about what you think people should do, because they might not know that they need to do it. They are not caregivers. Clearly, they're not caregivers. That's why you have taken on this role, because you think that way. They don't. And so sometimes you need to be pretty specific about what you need and ask people. If they continually fail you, stop asking them, right? They've given you the message, and that's on them. That's not on you. But if you haven't asked and haven't been specific before, give them the benefit of the doubt and ask them. Be clear with family and friends. So people are wanting to come visit. They're inviting you places. Be clear. Again, they do not know your world. They do not know what you deal with. They do not know the consequences of action. You do. Be clear about what works for you and your loved one, and be okay saying, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for inviting us, but it really wouldn't work out for us to meet you for coffee at 9 o'clock, or for us to go to a party that size. COVID, we don't want to do that. Or that's really just too much for mom right now. Family and friends that haven't seen you in a while, really important to give them the courtesy of updating them about your loved one before they see you. It's a great way to prepare them for physical changes so they're not shocked and alarmed, but also to give them some cues and some strategies about what might be successful. Hey, mom is really not remembering who anybody is now, and she gets really upset and agitated when she can't remember. So please don't ask her if you remember who she is. Greet her and say, hi, Grandma, it's Johnny. It's so good to see you, right? So tell them that. They don't know that. Like I say, recognize and respect that they may not have the knowledge about your loved one's illness that you do. You live it every day. You go to the doctors, you hear what they have to say. You do webinars, you take classes, you read books. You are an informed caregiver. These other people do not know what you know. And so it's really, again, it's one more thing, but if you can educate them in a gentle way, not an over this, sledgehammer over the head kind of way, that doesn't often go well. But gently educate them so that they can understand a little bit about what you're going through, most importantly, so that they can interact with your loved ones successfully. You want to help make the visit a success, right? If you know that it is hard for your mom to have conversation, well, you better have a backup plan for when that the old college roommate's coming over to visit, because you know that conversation's not going to go well. What can you do? Are there old photo albums that you could bring out? Is there an old movie that they could enjoy watching together? What's going to make that time together pleasurable? You have the inside scoop, right? A lot of times you know what might be good. Can your mom look at a photo album, do a puzzle? Is there a simple craft that you could do with the grandkids? Or is there baking that could be done? Again, not with mom at the helm at the stove, but how can you incorporate her and the people that are visiting so that it's pleasant for everyone? It should be pleasant for you too. So how can you set up these visits to be best? And if people have plans and ideas that you know are not going to work, it's okay to say it. And again, be gracious with people. It keeps them coming back, right? It's not always easy to do. Got to do a lot of biting at the lip sometimes, but I think that good karma and that good energy serves you so much better than that bitter negativity. So you've got all these feelings, right? You've got this bitter negativity built up inside that I'm telling you not to express to them, but you do need to express it. You've got to get it out, right? You've got to find a way to unburden yourself, to let these stressors out. So talk with someone, a good friend or a trusted family member, a therapist. That's really another COVID silver lining. Online mental health resources have just blossomed in the last year and a half. So it's really not hard to connect yourself with a professional without even having to leave the house. Right here, the Mental Health Association, 211, easy phone number to remember. Somebody on the other line who's trained to listen. They're trained to give you resource information, but they're also trained to listen. And sometimes it's really nice to have someone to be anonymous, not a friend or a family member. Somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know your situation, doesn't know anybody else, can't say anything to anybody else. Just a completely unbiased person to let you get it off your chest. And if you call 211 and you need more help than they can provide, that's a great resource because they can connect you to that. The Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Foundation, and probably every other disease foundation has a hotline. Take advantage of that. There are trained, whether they're volunteers or trained social workers or mental health professionals at the other end who can help you. There may not be an answer to your problem, but sometimes it's just really nice to vent and get it off your chest. Support groups. I am a huge proponent of support groups. I said before that these other people don't know your way of life. They don't know your disease. They don't know what you go through every day. But people in a support group, for the most part, they do. Yes, your path, your journey is a little bit different, but in general, there are so many similarities. So it can really be a way to connect with people who get it. You don't have to explain every nuance because they understand. And it's a safe place to vent, to get ideas, to share resources. So if you are not connected to a support group, I can't recommend it enough. And there are in-person support groups meeting in Frederick. There are virtual support groups. There are Facebook groups. There are groups associated, again, the Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Foundation, all those other disease-specific groups. They all offer support groups, and you can do them from the comfort of home and from your computer or from a telephone. So a great way to get connected. And if you've tried a group before and it didn't fit, it's like going to the doctor. Like you either make a connection or you don't. Try a different group. Every group is a little bit different in the way that they run. If talking out loud to people is not comfortable for you or not doable for you, something like journaling, you've got to get those feelings out. So if writing them down is helpful for you, do that. If meditating and giving them up is helpful to you, do that. But please, please, please find some time to do that, because it's the time you spend now will be you will be rewarded in the other end with less stress. Find time to recharge, to regroup, to do good things for yourself. I know it's trite, and you've all heard, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on your loved one. But it's so true. You have to take care of yourself, because as you get sucked into that depression hole, or that negativity hole, it impacts everybody. If you can find ways to keep yourself buoyant, to keep yourself healthy, that's gonna let you keep doing this job better. And I know that might sound, oh, I don't know about that, but help you come out intact at the other end, right? This caregiving journey is gonna end at some point. And you want yourself to be sane and happy when it does. So take the time that you need now. Now, you might need to reframe it. A weekend away may not be reasonable, right? It just might not be reasonable. But could you carve out an hour with a cup of tea and a magazine, or a Hallmark movie, or a good book, right? Would that virtual escape, if you will, be enough for right now? It might have to be. How can you find pleasure in bits and pieces that you can squeeze into your schedule? You need to be kind to yourself. You need to let yourself be happy, right? You're doing a great job. You're doing the job. You will make mistakes. You are not perfect. Be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and let yourself be happy. Find joy where you can. Sometimes you have to work at this. And I find that, just like the muscles of your body, if you don't use them, you lose them, right? They atrophy. Well, I think your happy meter, if you don't find joy, if you have been so long without laughing or being happy, that it's really hard to find anything that's happy. And if you work at it, if you find little things that can bring you joy, if you keep doing that, those little things add up and it becomes easier to see little things. With exercise, right? The rules have changed. It used to be 20 minutes of exercise at a time. And now they say that, 5-minute increments here and there can add up and have the same benefit. Well, I think it's kind of the same thing with happy. You may not be able to carve out a half an hour of time, but can you add up those little 5 minutes that you've laughed, that you found something happy? It may be as simple as a joke with the checkout clerk at the grocery store, or, the dog in the yard next door, or the birds frolicking at the feeder. The more you find happiness, the more happiness finds you. You've got to stay in the present. You've got to work at it. I mentor students, social work students from Hood, and we talk about, fake it till you make it, and power poses. And, sometimes you've just got to come out and look confident. You may not feel it, you're dying inside. But the more you do that, you start to build up a level of confidence. And then eventually you genuinely do feel confident. And I think it's kind of similar with happy. You might have to fake it in the beginning. But the more you do it, we say at Daybreak, laughter, best medicine, right? No side effects, doesn't cost anything, and it's contagious. One person laughing starts another person laughing. So if you start laughing and the person you take care of starts laughing, well, that's a pretty good dynamic going on. And in that moment, may not last long, but in that moment, you both have something pleasurable. So I hope that I have given you some, helped you think about the holiday season, to really understand why you are feeling so much stress, because there is so much stress on you right now. So many things converging at this one particular time that are really difficult to overcome. I hope I've given you some things to think about, that when it's quiet, that you create moments of quiet so that you can think about these things, to plan ahead, to understand your crazy family, and maybe try to put aside some of those challenges and not deal with them right now, because you just don't need that extra stress. That negativity weighs you down, and that you start thinking about yourself and what you need to be happy and to get through this season, that you can have the best holiday it can be. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. And I will stop the share.
Christina, thank you so much. That is such valuable information and some great tips for, not just the holidays that we're in right now, but also just thinking about other, larger family events like weddings and birthdays and just any other event that might come up throughout the year. I mean, these are just great tips for people to keep in mind as a caregiver. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat function here on Zoom, and we'll be happy to have Christine answer some of those questions for you. Christina, I had to chuckle when I saw the comment about the out-of-towner and the family members and how you named those, because, in all of my conversations with families, that's happening all the time. And anytime after a holiday and family travels and comes in and you get peppered with questions, family members feel guilty, and it's hard to be honest. What do you just sort of gloss over it sometimes and say, oh, thanks for the information, but how real do you make it? Because sometimes they have no idea what 24 hours in a day of caregiving looks like.
I think that's true. And I think honestly, unless they have done it and lived it, they never will. Nothing you can say to them will really help them be in your shoes. They might have a better idea. They might have more empathy for you or sympathy for you. But I don't know that they'll ever get it unless they are really, really doing it. I think it's important to know your audience, and know where you're going to get support, who is educatable, and who is just a boob and just, you could hit them over the head with it and they're probably not going to change. So why keep hitting them over the head? Protect yourself, know where you're going to get support and validation from, and know where you're not. And if you keep hitting the brick wall, stop hitting the wall, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to change. You are going to end this journey knowing that you did everything that you could. And they're going to end this journey. And whether they learn anything from it or not, that's honestly not yours to own or worry about, right? You can only control yourself and protect yourself.
Sure. And someone asked a question, during the holidays, we got a lot of visitors, family members, everyone's coming, they want to connect. And this is a great question. After the holidays, it can be such a letdown. Right. And you went from so much activity and dinners and special occasions to now there's nothing. So how can we keep those reconnections going?
Well, I think some of it comes down to being that gracious caregiver, setting people up for success, right? If you create good memories and good moments with people, they may be willing to stay connected to you, other than them just like, ooh, I tried and that was not good for me, so I'm not doing that again. And I think connecting yourself, right? Hopefully after the holidays have settled down, you've got some downtime. Maybe it is a good time to join a support group or an online group, or find some other outlets for yourself. If you get into that habit of finding good, finding happy, keep at it. What else makes you happy? Maybe now you have time to take mom through a stroll through the museum, or out to lunch where it's not crowded, or you have time to take yourself for a walk, or do something. You've survived the holidays. Use that newfound time to do something that's good and pleasurable.
Yeah, great suggestions. Christina, we may have some caregivers who are listening tonight that, maybe they're not at home providing caregiving still. Maybe their loved one is in a facility. How do we know what would be too much? Do we try to take a large number of family members in for a visit? Well, and we don't know. Some places aren't allowing that with COVID right now. So there's an out. But, do we bring mom home? What if we haven't done that for a long time? And, it could turn bad. But if I don't bring mom home, I'm going to feel so guilty.
What if this is her last Christmas?
What if
we didn't do it?
These are tough decisions and choices that families are making. Any suggestions?
I think first of all, you want to communicate with the facility, right? Understand what the limits are, and make sure you really understand how your loved one is functioning. Maybe it's time to literally make a pro and con list. What could go wrong? What's likely to go wrong? How can we maximize success? And so you're thinking about if you're going to do a visit, the time of day, where in the facility can you visit, right? Because of COVID restrictions, how many people can be there? How many people are going to be too much? What's our objective? Are we doing it just because we feel guilty and we want to check off the box that we went to the nursing home because the nursing home's going to think poorly of us if we don't show up? Or are we genuinely wanting to do this for ourselves, and to not have unrealistic expectations, to expect to go and be, happy-go-lucky for an hour or two might be way more than can be expected. Maybe a sweet 10-minute visit with a nice holiday treat is enough for your loved one and for yourself. So keep your mind open, right? It doesn't look the same for everybody.
Mhm. Well, and we sometimes find that, our family member may not know exactly what day it is, but,
Yeah, good point.
if there are decorations and, the environment looks like the holiday, maybe that will help the caregiver know that it doesn't have to be right on Christmas Day or, Christmas Eve, if that was the big day that everyone would try to visit as a family.
That's a great point. Again, think about yourself and your schedule. If that visit is just the 10th thing on your to-do list and your loved one has dementia and has no idea what day it is, do it tomorrow. Do it the day before, right? Be good to
Yeah.
yourself. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself that permission. But you're
Yeah.
right, Nancy, that guilt is really hard.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing with the holidays, the guilt that so many of us feel as caregivers or those who are taking care of others. We want to try to be all and end all. We want to make it the best for everybody, and that can be quite difficult.
And,
Yeah.
I think you have to remember too, again, particularly if you're dealing with dementia, who are you doing it for? Your loved one's going to forget you were there 10 minutes after you left, perhaps, depending on their stage of the illness.
Yeah.
So again, give yourself permission, use that to your advantage, not to add more pressure and not to add more guilt. It's the process, not the product, right? It's the joy that you have in the moment. And if you're frazzled and doing this out of obligation, it's not a good moment for anybody. But if you can do it at a different time when you feel good about being there and they enjoy those moments with you, then it's time well spent.
Sure. Does anyone have any other questions for Christina? We'd be happy to answer them. This has been such valuable information, and I think that we'll definitely have to use some of these topics during the year at another time, so that people can make sure that it resonates for other holidays throughout the year. And I know Christmas is a big one. The holidays in December are just so important for so many families to try to get together and be in touch with one another.
Well, thanks for squeezing us into your very busy holiday schedule. The fact that you made time for this at this time of year, really, I appreciate it very much. And I hope that we made it worth your while. I will share with you that our webinars are continuing, but we're changing things up a little bit in January. So we are changing the date and the time. So starting in January will be the second Wednesday of every month, and we're going to try daytime webinars. So we are scheduled for 1:00 p.m. the second Wednesday in January, which is
January the 12th.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It will be the same link to register. I don't have the proper Zoom link on there yet. I'll do that as soon as we hang up tonight, but we are welcoming Joy Rao from Division of Social Services, the Maryland Access Point, and Diane Grove from AIRS, the Adult Evaluation Review Service with Frederick County, to give us some good, valuable, concrete information about resources available to you here in the county. All right.
Thank you so much again for presenting, Christina. And we really want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. Have a wonderful holiday season, and hopefully we'll see you in January.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.